that Sigma programming. So while we're in the vein of talking about exchanging energy, why don't we make a commentary like this? So let's say someone asks, well, how do we combat these energies? What do we do to counteract it? What's my weapon of offense? So not just defense, but what is my weapon of offense? How do I proactively play a position in this energy war, in this energetic war? And so the answer to that is, one thing is you got to know what the target is. What is the target of your energy? Like, what do you seek to do with your energy? This is going to have everything to do with your effect on the energy's target, you understand? So your effect is going to have everything to do with what you're targeting. You ask yourself what you're targeting. Now, where we make the mistake a lot of times is we end up targeting one another. Now, what happens there is we'll only exacerbate and metastasize the issue, the social cancer that's taking place at the time. You know, you'll cause that thing to grow just by paying attention to it. Even if it's in opposition to it, just by virtue of you giving it attention, you're giving it more life. So what is this? It's the same thing that the Bible talks about when they record the war in heaven. The war that took place in heaven. Now, if you let Hollywood tell the story, you're going to see some wings flapping. You're going to see, you know, people, maybe some angels with swords, sickles. But there's going to be like a war in your traditional sense with armed combat. But that's not how the war in heaven was fought. It was a war on spiritual real estate. Because when it said Michael defeated the dragon and his angels, what it said afterward was that there was no more space and there was no more place in heaven for them. So it was a pushing out. And you also have imagery in the book of Revelation where certain entities are chained up. This talks a lot about the direction of what is being handled in terms of the power dynamic. You're tying up the strong man first, and then you're plundering. You don't look at the land and you see the treasures and start going for the treasures. You have to, again, immediately, first and foremost, focus on, well, who's guarding these treasures? Who do these treasures belong to before dipping into the treasures? They call this seeking the Lord above all things. You're not seeking just the things of this world. You're more interested in who's over these things and what are the rules that would dictate you getting these things and using these things wisely. Those rules have everything to do with the owner. When you get it in the packaging, if it were a product of self-assembly, DIY, it will be an owner's manual in there. What did they say in the older prophets about the coming of the Son of Man? Said his name will be Emmanuel, a manual, something for you to read, instructions going across the land, the embodiment of instruction. You have to push out the idea with the opposite idea. Instead of being, let's use the subject of violence. If you're anti-violence in the spiritual realm, you're still being pro-violence just by paying attention to violence, because it's about space. So instead of being anti-violence, you're going to be pro-peace. What this does is keep the focus on peace, and it's not underlining the enemy. It's not scattering and dividing the attention. When you're dealing with one-to-one interactions with people and you're trying to influence an environment spiritually, a conversation, a tone, you got to be very fast to discern and effectively and appropriately respond to what's happening in real time on the spiritual plane. And it can be different remarks, it can be different energies, how different people speak. Someone may speak out to you in a way where they're desiring a conversation, or others may speak in a way where they're more closed off and they're not. But spiritually, you discern what's happening in real time, and you're not combating the person in either instance. What you're doing is assessing the energy and responding appropriately to the energy. This is what it really means to be as wise as serpents and harmless as doves. You're leaving the people unharmed. But on the spiritual level, you're doing this or that to particular spirits on a real estate level, because you're introducing a different idea to the spiritual real estate space, and you're thereby building another property. Because now you have zoning. You're able to zone in on the person's, maybe they may be feeling a little apathetic, but then you might say a remark that might trigger some humor out of them. And out of that humor, a reflex of the humor might open up the floodgates of compassion. The next thing you know, this person might be confessing to you why they were bitter for the last 15 years of their life. But humor was the thing that triggered the floodgate. Humor was the guard. See, once you had the conversation with their humor, you looked past the person, past their faults, past how the person appeared to be in life, past whatever their status was, past whatever it looks like they're doing with their life. You looked past all of that. This is what they call looking past the person's faults and seeing their needs. What the need is, in all instances, is for a spiritual upgrade, energetic upgrade, an emotional, psychological upgrade. And so you're doing that. You're a spirit raiser. You're a resurrector, where a moment might have been dead and buried. Spirits, moods, tones might have been in the dead and buried zone. You're the resurrection. So you're bringing those things back to life. You're raising those things back up in the new body, where those things involving spiritual manipulation and influence can be chained up in the house of the dead, only to be used by practitioners on the left. But no, if a person on the right should get past some of the pitfalls of enthusiasm over true spirituality, which is really just what? Happiness without the inclusion of wisdom. So really a false joy, a giddiness, a fandom, rather than true discipleship. These are what you're doing when you're understanding how energy flows, and you're being able to separate the meat from the bones, to separate the wheat from the tares. The tares is the spiritual stuff. The wheat is the people. You want to keep the people safe, but you want to separate them from the tares, and that is a toss-up, because that's what happens on the threshing fork, right? The farmer has to toss the bundle up in the air in order to separate the wheat from the chaff. So in this separation, you have a big toss-up. The conversation is tossed up. However the conversation goes, whatever the topic, however the topic starts, God leaves that up to you. That's a toss-up. But in that toss-up, spiritually, you got to be thinking in nanoseconds on how to sift. If you do this on autopilot, you don't know how the conversation is going to go, and it's going to be random, and it'll cause people to be closed off from one another because they don't want to take a gamble. Even when it comes to social interactions, a person still wants a sure thing. But now we're talking about positive spiritual manipulation, how to change an environment for the better using true magnetism for its appropriate aims and its real divine purpose. Now you're becoming a vibration raiser, and you're becoming not the first Adam that is of the flesh, which is what this body is initially. We're the first Adam, but we're also the last Adam, because we have the option to be a life-giving spirit.